Shalom. First, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone from whom I learned this truth. And Shalom to the 144,000 elect. I am Ayakala. And I'm not really sure what I'm going to call this. But I wanted to bring out a few verses because I was just thinking about how I was speaking to a brother the other day about talking to family members and how after talking to family members it just seemed like this word wasn't being accepted by them because you find them doing the same old thing and saying that they're going to need time to give up certain things, ways of the world. I mean, it seemed like certain things it should be easy to give up, such as putting up a Christmas tree and things of those nature, and eating abominable foods like the swine and shrimp, crab and lobster and things of those nature. It seemed like if they're really listening and your words, the truth is really being heard by them, that if those things would be easy to let go of, they really love the Lord. So you have to sometimes recognize the fact that because of who you are, trying to bring this truth to your family, that is not, they're going to look at you in a certain manner like I knew you and I know who you are, and they're remembering who you were in the world. So it's kind of hard for them to accept this truth from you. Them knowing you and knowing the way that you were in the world, not realizing that you put off that old man and you are now a new man in this truth. But this won't be a very long lesson. I'll only have just a few verses that I wanted to bring out. And you can see the first one that I'm at is Matthew chapter 13, verse 53. And you can see that heading there says Yahweh Shai revisits Nazareth. Alright. And I'm going to start at verse 53. It says, "It came to pass that when Yahweh Shai had finished these parables, he departed thence." So he had just going over a few parables. This being the book of Matthew chapter 13. There are a number of parables here. And speaking with the disciples. Verse 54 says, "And he was come into his own country. He taught them in their synagogue, insomuch that they were astonished and said, Whence has this man this wisdom and these mighty works?" And in other words, they were asking, where did he get this wisdom from? Where did he get this knowledge from? Because they know that he hadn't been taught by the Pharisees and hadn't been taught by the Sadducees. It says, verse 55 says, "Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brethren James and Joses and Simon and Judas?" So because of him being in his own town and them being around people who know him, they couldn't believe that he was bringing out this knowledge and bringing out this truth the way he was, because they knew him growing up. It says, "And his sisters, are they not all with us? Whence then hath this man all these things?" So they wanted to know, where did he learn all these things? How did he not have such knowledge that he was bringing out? Verse 57, it says, "And they were offended in him. But Yahweh Shai said unto them, A prophet is not without honor, save in his own country and in his own house." And I want to read this one in the NLT. Verse 57 says, "And they were deeply offended and refused to believe in him. And then Yahweh Shai told them, A prophet is honored everywhere except in his own hometown and among his own family. All right. And I'll even read verse 58. Says, and I'm still in the NLT. He says, and so he did only a few miracles there because of their unbelief. So he was amongst unbelievers. All right. So and because they knowing him as he was growing up and knowing who he is, they were refusing to believe that he could bring forth this truth, and they were wondering, well, where was this man taught? Who taught him? And just because they know him, they were unbelievers. For that reason, Yahweh chose not to do many miracles there. All right, because he knew he was amongst unbelievers. All right, and it's kind of difficult when you're realizing that family members are not being accepted of this truth. And a lot of times when they hear the so-called white man come back, and if he say these things and they hear it come out of his mouth, they'd be quick to believe. But just because it's coming out of your mouth, and you being a family member, and them knowing you when you were in the world, not recognizing that you are changed, and you put on that new man, they just unwilling to let go of that, and just can't believe that you could be bringing out this truth and can be living this truth. So if Yahweh Shai is being received like this, that we as servants of Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, our family members, you're probably maybe you'll have some family members who do believe it and do listen, but it rarely happens that way. I know with myself, like I was saying, I was talking to a brother explaining that family members just it's like it went in one ear and went right out the other. It's almost if I didn't say anything. So for that reason, I've spent very little time around my immediate family, because they're showing themselves to be unbelievers, and I've gone more than once to try to bring out this word is 100% truth, and teaching what I know to them. But I haven't seen a change, especially when I saw this so-called holiday season that just passed, and they were doing the same thing. When birthdays roll around, they're doing the same thing on birthdays. So I've gone and approached them more than twice on these issues and on these things, and not seeing a change. So after the second or third admonition, just as it says in the scripture, you have to leave it alone. All right. I'm not going to keep trying to press and keep trying to push, because they're starting to see some of these things happening in the world, and I know it's in their mind, in their heads, wondering, all right, he was right about some things, and I'm not even going to even approach him anymore. I'm just going to wait to see, and I'll be accepting and be willing to talk to them more if they come in and ask about it. But until then, I'm not going to approach them anymore, because I'm just going to leave it just as it is. I'm not trying to make anybody swallow this truth. All right. As much as I want to see them accept it, there's nothing I can do after I've tried a couple more than once to approach them with this truth. And I'm just going to go over to the book of Luke. Chapter 11, verse 27, because those who knew you and knew you in the world will look all past you. And like I said, if somebody else were to bring this truth out, somebody like Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, they'll sit up and listen at that point. And I'm just going to bring out verse 27 here. This is Luke chapter 11, verse 27 says, "And it came to pass, as he spake these things, a certain woman of the company lifted up her voice and said unto him, Blessed is the womb that bare thee, and the paps which thou hast sucked." So, as Yahushua was in this instance right here, Yahushua, as much as he taught, as much as he tried to bring to his people, they would even find even other reasons to try to look past him and look, in this instance, looking at his mother and trying to give his mother all the credit for bringing forth someone like Yahushua when it was the Father that had blessed him, that the Father had given him this knowledge, and he was doing what his Father expected him to do, what Yahweh expected him to do, expected of him, because this is how he had been taught. All right. So I'm going to read that verse 27 in the NLT, and says, "As he was speaking, a woman in the crowd called out, The Most High bless your mother, the womb from which you came, and the breast that nursed you." So they even want to give blessings to his mother, give credit to his mother, so to speak, rather than looking at him and realizing that Yahushua is the blessed one. Yahushua is the one giving them this 100% truth. Verse 28, and I'm still in NLT, it says, Yahushua replied, and this being in the red letter, him speaking, says, "But even more blessed are all who hear the word of the Most High and put it into practice." So he's correcting this woman at this point to let her know, blessed is the one who hears what's coming out of his mouth, who's heard the teaching that's coming forth, and those who put it into practice, recognizing where it's coming from, and recognizing, not trying to look to his mother to give his mother the credit, but recognizing that Yahushua is doing this teaching. This is where it's coming from. And once you're given these teachings, putting it into practice, that's what's important. And that's what Yahushua was stressing at this point. But like I said, your family it's not always going to be accepting of this truth. All right. It's simply because in some instances it's who it's coming from, and them knowing you and remembering you as you were in the world. I'm going to go over to the book of Mark. And let me see, where am I going? Mark chapter 3. And this is I'm going to start at verse 31. It says, "There came then his brethren and his mother, and standing without sent unto him, calling him." So Yahushua had been teaching in the synagogue, teaching in the temple. And it says, "And the multitude sat about him, and they said unto him, Behold, thy mother and thy brethren without seek for thee." So his mother and his brothers and sister had come to seek him. All right. Verse 33 says, "And he answered them, saying, Who is my mother or my brethren? And he looked around about on them which sat about him, and said, Behold, my mother and my brethren." So instead of looking at his immediate family, his mother and his brethren, he's looking at those in that multitude who were sitting there, who were listening. All right, and these were the disciples who were sitting, listening. Verse 35 says, "For whosoever shall do the will of the Most High, the same is my brother and my sister and mother." So once you recognize that you've approached family and you're not seeing a change, you're not seeing that this truth is being accepted by them. Is that really who your family is? Are they the ones who are really are living as believers and being as you are? You being a believer? So the ones that are your family members, those that are really your brethren, are those who are believers, those who are in this 100% truth. All right. Now you even have people who know that they are Israelites but are not in this 100% truth because they're listening to false prophets, false teachers. All right. But it's only the men of Great Millstone that are teaching 100% truth, and that's where you get the 100% truth. That's the teaching. That's the doctrine that you have to follow. All right. Because if you're following a false teacher, a false prophet, you're still being misled and you're not getting into 100% truth. So those that are in this truth and understand and have the 100% truth, those are your brethren. Those are your that is your family. All right. You know, it might be difficult. I'm not saying that you just have to not go around your family members at all, because there's going to be times that you do go by and do check on them and do just see how they're doing, make sure that they're all right. But those, you have to recognize that they are not accepting others' truth, and basically they're unbelievers. The only thing that you can do is hope that they come to accept this truth and hope that they repent. All right. And I just have one other verse that I wanted to bring out, because it is what we're talking about. I don't want to change the subject, but I just wanted to go and mention that there is a division that comes about because of this truth. All right, and once you recognize that you have to separate yourselves from unbelievers, the better off you are, because this truth brings about division. This truth brings about a separation. All right, and you're going to be finding that you're going to go around family members that you grew up, that you were brought up by, whether it be mother and father, being around sisters and brothers. You're going to be finding that you're going to spend a lot less time around them because they are unbelievers, and it's going to be difficult for you to spend time around them and be around them because they are still in the world. And you are separate from the world. You separated from the world. You put off that old man. I'm going to go back into the book of Matthew. And I'm going to go to chapter 10. Verse 34, this being in a red letter. This is Yahushua speaking. It says, "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law." I wanted to take a look at this word variance. G1369, and I'll give you a pronunciation.
Strong's G1369. Dechadzo.
And under the biblical usage, it says to cut into two parts, to cleave asunder, or to sever. All right, and that's the division that I was speaking about, because that's what this word does. This word brings about a division. And once you recognize that you're amongst unbelievers, that's what you have to do. You have to cut them off. You have to separate yourself and remove yourself from that setting. Under the Strong's definition, it says from a derivative, Salaki, it says to make apart. Example, sunder. Figuratively, to alienate, to set at variance. So that's what exactly what that word variance means, meaning to cut off, to separate yourself, meaning you have to separate yourself from these family members because they're unbelievers. Verse 36 says, a man's foes shall be they of his own household. So the very enemies of meeting be your brothers and sisters because their refusal to accept his truth. 37 says, he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So even your own children, all right, once you teach them this truth and you see that they're not accepting of this truth, you have to let them go on. You have to separate yourself from them, which I know is difficult. Verse 38, and he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. Because that's becoming lively when you forsake this world and you turn your back on your world, and once you coming into this truth, following the teachings of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, that's when you become a lively stone. That's when you become, that's living, all right? Because when being part of this world, that's being in the servitude unto the wicked. That's not living, all right? You're merely surviving and taking what they want you to have, taking the scraps that they leave for you. That's not what living is. Living is being in rulership. Living is like I said, accepting this 100% truth and living and following Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. And you'll truly see what living is. Having understanding, all right? And having understanding of man's ways, of man's worldly ways, and leaving those things behind, all right? But I'm going to go ahead and leave it there, and I pray that this has been edifying to the listener. I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, HaKadosh. Shalom.